Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So around 1 year ago, I made a video talking about the best old school death metal amplifier of all time. And that amp was the JCM900 by Marshall. If you missed that video, please watch it and then come back and continue this video. Thank you. Now, amongst all the Marshall amplifiers, there is one amp that you always will see being talked about as being the most synonymous with old school death metal, even more than the JCM800. And that amp is the infamous JCM900. This amp was used basically by most bands at the time. Bands like Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Carcass, and many others. Now, this video is not whether this amp is good or bad or like your usual review. It is definitely iconic and great sounding amp. There is no dispute about that. So before buying this amp, I was trying to find demos and reviews of this amp because you have to before buying an amplifier you've never tried in person. And I could not find any videos that does this amp justice when it comes to old school death metal tones. So naturally, as a death metal fan, and I bought this specifically for old school death metal, I wanted to make this video so I can demo it specifically for that genre. Now I have owned this amp for a few months and I gotta say this amp is perfect. So you can just skip this video and just go buy it. But let's have some fun and demo this amp only for 90s old school death metal. So for the EQ, I maxed out all of it, basically everything at 10. And the reason I did that is because I just like how it sounds when I do that. I don't care what anyone says. And you gotta go extreme with this kind of music and this kind of amp. So I really think scooping the mids on an amplifier to get the old school death metal tones is a myth. And you know, if you've heard enough records from the 90s, you would find out that the guitar was cutting through the mix just fine and it sounded really good. Anyway, so I'll be using my 80s Flying V by Gibson. And the cabinet is the 1960 Marshall cabinet, which is stock with G12T75s. I don't care what anyone says, these speakers rock. And I gotta say that if you want old school death metal, most bands were actually going through these cabinets. So if you have problem with that, watch something else. Now I'm going through the high gain channel because this is a 2-channel amp. There's clean and high gain. And I'm almost maxing out the gain because surprisingly this amp doesn't have a lot of high gain, at least compared to other amps from the 90s. And I'm still not boosting it with any pedals. So I'm just going through the amp with my guitar. Now, to me, this level of gain is fine for me because I don't mind if something is not saturated. So I'm saying this so you can be careful not to buy this amp and expect it to be this high gain monster that does not require any boost pedals. Now, I will boost it with the Tube Screamer and lower the gain just a little bit so it is not oversaturated. I don't understand how some people will listen to this tone and say it is bad. It is absolutely crushing. And to me, this is instant old school death metal tone. And it sounds very nasty. I just love it. And this is why I hate these new metal tones that everyone's trying to get nowadays. And they sound like a Dragon Ball Z video game intro. I'm just kidding, okay? It was just a joke. Now let's try the rat pedal. And the reason why is because Trey Azagthoth used it. So that's a good enough reason, right? So this is evidence that you don't really just need those 90s solid state amplifiers to get these old school death metal tones. Don't get me wrong, I like those too, but this amp is just underrated for that. And I'm surprised not enough people play it for those tones. Now, by now, you're either really angry with me or really happy. So I'll take that opportunity to introduce the Metal Zone to use it as a boost. So I chose this combination of gear, like a Gibson into a 900 with these G12T75 speakers and the Metal Zone, because this is basically the nightmare of everyone on the gear page. However, let's be honest, this is absolutely insanely good. Now, one thing I want to tackle that no one talks about is the reverb circuit in this amp. It's digital spring reverb. However, it has this kind of synthy vibe to it because it's not like those modern spring reverb pedals that are available right now. This is very old school, so it's not great, but it is just right for that 90s vibe. Now, I know in Morris Sound Studios, for example, they were using rack units for the reverb. However, when I try the reverb on this amp, I get something very similar, and it's just amazing. Gets you that instant old school death metal reverb. And yes, they were using a lot of reverb back then. Now, I'll set the spring reverb to 12 o'clock, and I'll go back to using the tube screamer for this. Now, by now, it is very clear that this amp is capable of these tones very easily. And I gotta say that when around 1 year ago, when Marshall introduced the 20-watt version of this, which they call the studio version, I was happy because this means that this amp, they are selling it. People are buying it. People are using it. Or else they wouldn't have introduced a 20-watt version of it. Now, I think also part of the hate is that a lot of people are expecting those very classic Marshall tones that are achievable by the JCM900, for example, and of course all these 60s and 70s amps. However, this amp just is different, and I don't think it is fair to just expect it to be this classic Marshall sounding amp, but it sounds unique by itself. There is no other amp that sounds like a 900. So I hope you got what you expected from this video, and thank you of course so much for watching. So please like, share, subscribe, and make sure you share this on the gear page. Thank you.